Silverstein formed in 2000 in Burlington, Ontario, in Canada. They pretty much stayed the same throughout the 25 years that they've been making music and touring together so far, with Shane Told on vocals, Paul Kohler on drums, Josh Bradford on the rhythm guitar, Billy Hamilton on the bass. And then since 2012, I believe, Paul Mark Russo as a lead guitar. They have put out 12 or 13 studio albums. I would say 13 because I don't count Anti Bloom and Pink Moon as one, but two. And sold over 1 million albums worldwide so far, with, of course, albums sold doesn't really matter as much nowadays. So, with a band as consistent, sale numbers don't matter that much. Their first record, full album, let's say, When Broken is Easily Fixed, was released in 2003, produced by Justin Coop or Cope, was the first of their Victory Records label deal, sold over 200,000 copies to date. So, was quite successful for a debut. And back then, just a funny quote from AllMusic's Greg Prato, who reviewed the album, said, that it sounds like the band has two singers, a pop singer and a hardcore screamer, but it turns out that it's just Shane Told doing his best Jekyll and Hyde impersonation, which is a funny quote I found for this album. I would agree, especially when you listen to Leads No More, which is just one banger of a live song. I am always enjoying Silverstein live, especially for the song, and they bring the energy no matter how long they've been on tour. Right? They are basically just putting out releases and then going on tour and putting out releases and going on tour again. And When Broken is Easily Fixed is where it all started. But this album led into Discovering the Waterfront in 2005, which was their big breakthrough. Once again with Victory Records, produced by Cameron Webb, who they would work with more later. Over 400,000 copies sold, is gold certified in Canada nowadays, and just was the breakthrough with Smile in Your Sleep and My Heroine, of course, being the tracks that everyone loved and that everyone was just going crazy for. They are both very, very nice live tracks as well. So it just makes sense that this is their most successful album to date, or maybe the second most successful. It's the most sold album to date, but we'll cover maybe a more successful one later on. Not sure. So this one, by the way, the gold certification just came in 2024, so just recently. Just if you're wondering why I put that in there, and you maybe haven't heard of it, September 2024, it was gold certified in Canada. Now, Arrivals and Departures, produced by Mark Trombino, also Victory Records, was titled The Worst Record by Shane Told. I personally, this was the album where I fell in love with Silverstein because I saw them live at Rock am Ring 2007. And they opened with Sound of the Sun, which probably the heaviest song on the record. I'm not sure, but it's bringing a really nice live energy as an opener. And yeah, afterwards, I think I saw them three more times, maybe until now. It's always a good show. They are always bringing a lot of energy, a very, very tight performance. And from this album, I would also recommend Still Dreaming and My Disaster. Overall, the album really is more poppy than the other ones, more pop culture influenced. And maybe that's also why it's not the best received, although personally, I really, really like it. Now, 2 years later, which basically is just Silverstein throughout all their career, every second year they are dropping an album. A Shipwreck in the Sand was their first conceptual album, produced by Cameron Webb again. It's a lot harder, probably their hardest album to that date. Also, thematically a bit repetitive, or well, not repetitive, like, but it's a conceptual album, and so the theme stretches throughout the whole release. So the thematic structure really is the same. I never mind. I loved especially I Am the Arsonist on this track, which just is amazing. And they had a feature with lights for the end here. And funny quote by Shane told about that was that he was at the gym late one night during the recording process and he heard lights on in the gym, which at the time was kind of strange because she was still a small artist. He heard that song February Air and he literally was like, oh my God, maybe we could get her. That would be rad. And then they got that feature. It's a very nice song as well, just not one of my personal highlights. 2 years later came Rescue, preceded by the Transitions EP earlier in the year, which had Silverstein's first written for acoustic performance song or written on acoustic instruments, Replace You, which came on this album as well as an amplified version. But this was the first time where they had a song written as an acoustic version and then transformed it into an amplified version. This was the first record put out through Hopeless Records after finishing their record deal with Victory Records. This was seen as kind of a creative rebirth for Silverstein, as Shane told that himself, that they felt really revitalized 4 records on Victory for 10 years, just putting out albums and touring and staying with the same label. And they wanted to this time make a record just the way they wanted to do it, just write everything themselves and write it the way they wanted to. Yeah, he was also quoted saying that rescue is a positive word. It's uplifting. At the same time, it really hits the core of what we do. Rescuing ourselves and others from worse times to better times, moving forward and improving is basically a form of self rescue. Short Songs in 2012 was just 22 songs and cover songs or cover versions of songs that were 90 seconds or shorter. Just an experimental thing, I think, where they wanted to experiment. You know, that they had time after recording Rescue and just wanted to do a short concept album where the concept was the duration of the songs. They got some bangers on here. I couldn't pick a recommendation, but it's so short. Just listen through it. 19 minutes, 22 songs, produced by Jordan Valeriote. I don't know how to pronounce that. Not much more to say here. Got a funny quote here because Paul Kohler said most people might associate a short song with a fast punk rock vibe, which I would myself agree, but that's not always the case. There will still be a ballad, a breakdown, and some sing-alongs all amidst these quick songs. The idea is to give the listeners a mini Silverstein album, which it really was. There's not much of the Silverstein vibe getting lost just because the songs are shorter. This is how the wind shifts. Their first release with Paul Marc Rousseau, who replaced Neil Boshart on guitar, and it's the second concept album, once again produced with or by Jordan Valeriot. Let's just say Jordan from now on. And this time, sorry, the concept or the idea behind the concept was that a person's life can change forever with just one event. It is the what if that everyone thinks about from time to time. Each track has a parallel track that tells the story in a different light. What would have happened if things were different due to a single event, as Painbold was quoted saying. So that's really just the whole concept of the album. Personally, this is one of my least listened to albums. At the time, I think it's more due to the time I didn't listen to that much music, and Silverstein was more in the back of my mind as a great live act, but not so much for their releases. Still, I really love Massachusetts and The Better Place. Yeah, on Paul Marc Russo joining, Shane Told said that he came in and they were working on stuff, and then he said, "Hey, I don't mean to overstep here, but I wrote some music for a Silverstein song." So he just came in and he had a song, and that became the instrumental for Stand Amidst the Roar, which is on this album. And Shane further was quoted saying, "And right away, when I heard that initial riff, I was like, this is so sick." And very quickly, it became the mindset of this is the guy. This is this guy for Silverstein. They want to work with him. And so they did. He joined and never left again. I Am Alive in Everything I Touch. Produced by Jordan again, first released through Rise and New Damage. New label once again. Third and last album with Jordan as well. Also, third concept album, which is quite funny because if you count the free records with Jordan and short songs, also is some kind of concept album, not like a story concept, but with the 90 seconds or shorter songs throughout. It's also a concept for the whole album. So, third and last album with Jordan, all three pretty much had a concept start to finish. And here, Shane Told was quoted on the album's concept, saying that all the city clips recorded, the transitions, and making sure the concept really worked and told the story of loneliness, despite being surrounded by so much excitement. As much as I've put myself out there over all the records we've done, there's something more real about this one. Quote from the time this album was released. And the most personal songs here were Toronto, Unabridged. There's two Toronto songs on this, really. And Continual Condition. Both musically were important songs for me, writing wise. And lyrically, I think they pulled some of the darkest truth out of me. And even though they were hard to write, I'm glad I got through it and was able to complete them. So, yeah, sometimes I think as a songwriter, you just have to push through these dark feelings, put them on a track, and then move on, is a lot of the sentiment you get there. My personal favorite here was Late on Sixth, which really just breaks the album apart. It's giving you room to breathe and an acoustically different vibe. Like the sound changes for one song and then it's back to the main vibe of the album. And it was really enamoring at the time listening to it and just having that break in the album. So, not sure if it would stand out that much if you listen to it without having listened to the whole album, though. So, listen to the whole album. On to their 2017 Dead Reflection, a release I like very much. Seen them live in the year or the year after, not sure. But with this release, produced by Derek Hoffman, label was Rise Again. And this time was the first time that they had a single produced way before the album. So they produced and recorded Ghost ahead of the album production and just put it out there. Shane Told said that that reflection was a record I needed to make. I was in a dark place and creatively I needed to channel that a little bit. Make a record that was dark and big sounding production wise and encompassed the lyrical subject matter into the production. My personal favorite and live favorite is Whiplash, which just brings so much energy in just under 3 minutes. It's amazing. Now, here you started to see that Paul Marc Rousseau really had a lot of influence on the way Silverstein produced albums because he's got a lot of producing credits for this album. And for their single Ghost, which I talked about earlier, they employed 10 different mixers to mix the single. And then they themselves compared all versions after they were delivered and then picked the one they liked most. And through that way, they also established the production team for the full album. Just a little anecdote here. A Beautiful Place to Drown in 2020, released just before Corona or COVID, the lockdown we all lived through, and is their probably most successful album, just looking at stream numbers, or maybe second most successful after discovering the Waterfront. Came out with a new label again, UNFD, and first album produced by Sam Guayana, who they still work with until today. This is also the first release to have 3 years in between releases. And yeah, like I said, the second most plays on Spotify, following only Discovering the Waterfront, which is really insane. Like 15 years later, he put out an album and it was insane. Like production value, feature songs, everything on here is on point. There's a quote I wanted to let me just find it somewhere. Yeah, there. Shane Told on his voice defining the band. I think honestly, once I sing on something, it just sounds like Silverstein. The music will write certain stuff like there's a few songs, like even the first single, Infinite. It's quite a bit different musically. And then there's a song on the record like All on Me, which is very different. Once I'm singing on the songs, all of a sudden everything just kind of clicks into place. And I would agree. Once Jane is on a song and you hear his voice, just goes to Silverstein. Okay? It doesn't matter for the structure of the song or the thematic focus of the song. You hear his voice and you turn to Silverstein. Now, Silverstein were interrupted at the height of their success with this album because of the pandemic. And their next album, Misery Made Me, which came out in 2022 and was also produced by Sam Guayana and put out through UNFD, pretty much tells the story of that. And so Shane Told was quoted that misery was what we all felt for the better part of 2 years, especially the way we came into the pandemic. We were firing on all cylinders. 10 shows into that tour, we find ourselves at home where it's not only depressing that we had to stop at the peak of our momentum and our career, but there's just all these uncertainties going on in the world. And yeah, that was really unfortunate for the band with the success they had, just having to stop in the middle of the tracks. For the first time in their career, they truly put it all out there. He was further quoted. They went into this with no rules and no preconceived notion of what Silverstein is or what it could be. It's showing, even though it still feels like Silverstein all throughout. Very high production and songwriting quality again, just as always. Um, I would really, really suggest giving it a listen if you haven't yet. Die Alone and The Altar Mary are my personal favorites, of course, with Ultraviolet, the hit single from this one, which just there's just songs where you are like, yeah, that's Silverstein all throughout, but it's not boring that it feels like that, you know. With some bands, you listen to a song and you feel like, oh yeah, yeah, it's this again, yeah, same old. But with Silverstein, it's like, oh yeah, same old Silverstein, let's fucking go. Which I would also say for Anti Bloom and Pink Moon, produced by Sam Guayana again on the label UNFD. Um, it's their first double album recorded in the same 5 week period. So I bundled them together, which is also why Anti Bloom will not be showing up in the catching up on 2025 releases category. And so Anti Bloom came out in February 21 with 8 tracks, maybe 22 minutes. So um, not the longest of tracks, just right for that Silverstein style. The session was on a 35-acre property in Joshua Tree National Park. They just stayed there together throughout the whole time. Throughout the recording, they discovered that they wanted to do the double album. And so they recorded 25 songs, chose 16 to go with, and split them up like this. Now, do we have a nice quote here for this? Okay, yeah. So here, Shane Told with Rock Sound in February. So this is related to Anti Bloom. I think with this album, the new rule was why can't we influence ourselves? Why would we ignore the fact that we have put out all this music as a band and push away from that and try to find the new every single time? This song would make the Discovering the Waterfront track list. So why shouldn't it make it here? We used to have these unwritten rules, but now it's fuck the rules for everything, which I really, really just love. My favorite track from that is Confession, which just again has that Silverstein vibe, that structure, that feeling to it. Listen to these two in a row, and you really get the feeling that um, there's a theme that's relating. There's also opposites, um, but it really has a different feeling to it when you listen to all 16 tracks in a row. As for Pink Moon, we covered that last episode already. Came out just before last episode, September 12th. I'm not gonna talk too much about it again, so let's stick with Anti Bloom for this one. Pink Moon came out afterwards, has two features I personally really like with Dayseeker and Cassidy Pope. Sorry, got a bit lost in the sauce there. I would recommend Skin and Bones, of course, from Anti Bloom, as well as The Fatalist from Pink Moon again. Otherwise, it's 16 songs, 40 minutes, 45 maybe. Just give it a go, listen to it, and get entrenched in Silverstein greatness. Whoa. So, my questions to you: when did Silverstein grab you? Was it with discovering the waterfront or later? Which era is your favorite? Was it the early one where they really had that raw energy coming with them with Bleeds No More and Smile in Your Sleep, My Heroine? Or was it more later, maybe with Misery Made Me? That reflection? Tell me. Have you seen them live? Share your experience. I have never once seen a bad show of them. And I don't think anyone has, really. Maybe. They toured so much, there might be a few bad shows in there, even though they are just really, really great. My favorite Silverstein song probably. Ooh, I couldn't tell you. I would have to think really long. Like, I don't think I have that one song where I just return to every once in a while. With Silverstein, I just put on albums, right? Like I'll put on Discovering the Waterfront, I'll put on other releases and just listen to them throughout because it just gives you the whole experience, especially with a band like Silverstein.